Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about a book that I read, one that is in a series that I've been sadly exploring. I am referring to the 9th volume of the Princess Diaries series, Princess Mia by Meg Cabot.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Anyway, as I said, I've been exploring this series, talking about how Meg Cabot is a bad writer, and also how the series had a lot of promise that it didn't completely live up to. It's amazing that the first Princess Diaries movie was good, but the director took a lot of artistic license with it, which I feel made the series a lot better. Meg Cabot even says the same thing in her in the books, saying that the movies took artistic credit, referring to the in-universe movies, sorry. It's funny, it seems like sour grapes there. The story so far, Mia Thermopolis discovers that she is a princess of the country of Genovia. Her parents have been hiding that from her for a while. She is resistant to the idea at first, but she slowly comes around to accepting it, and even tries to negotiate her own princesship and what that would mean. Unfortunately, the series does not live up to that promise, as Meg Cabot, just quickly forgets about Mia trying to be a princess on her own terms. And then Mia falls in love with Michael, her best friend's brother. They have a somewhat successful relationship for a little while. Then Michael goes to college and rifts begin to form between them, which ultimately ends when Michael decides to go to Japan. They sort of break up at that point, and that's where the story left off, with Princess on the Brink with Mia dealing with some sadness because of the breakup, or the sort of breakup, and potentially finding love in her future. And so that's where the story is so far. Without further ado, let's talk about Princess Mia. Get this over with. I'll do a little summary, a little analysis, and we will move on from there. As I just mentioned, Princess Mia begins where the Princess on the Brink left off. Michael has flown to Japan, and Mia is still reeling from their last fight, where things did not end on such high terms. Michael saw Mia kiss another guy. Plus, there's the fact that they were fighting about Michael not being entirely truthful to Mia about his past relationships. But Mia takes some time to go on a sort of date with John Paul Abernathy IV, who she calls JP. She doesn't recognize that it's a date because she's innocent and she can't see what's blatantly in front of her, a trait that is consistent throughout the series. I do have to give Meg Cabot credit there. The paparazzi see them on their date and take a bunch of pictures, which the entire school sees and most of the country sees. This results in a fight with Lily because Lily was previously dating JP, and Lily now feels that Mia is trying to take her ex-boyfriend away from her, and she's also mad about the fight that they had with Michael, her brother. So things aren't looking too good in that relationship right there. Once Michael lands in Japan, he calls up Mia and they have a conversation about their relationship, and it ends with Michael saying that he feels it would be best for both of them if they just remained friends and didn't try to pursue a relationship in the future. This deeply upsets Mia. She falls into a depression, which she doesn't go to class for a week. She stays in her bed mostly. She starts eating meat again. Her grandmother stops by to ask her to do a speech at a Women's Society event, as Mia doing that would help her grandmother get into the Women's Society. Mia just agrees to it just to get her grandmother out of her hair, and Mia even tells her mom that, which upsets her mom because that's not good behavior, telling people what they want to hear to get them out of your hair. So Mia's mom and her dad decide to send her to therapy. A man named Dr. Nuts, which, terrible writing on Meg Cabot's part to call therapist Dr. Nuts. I mean, it's funny, but also, come on, like, you could do better. So yeah, Mia goes to therapy, where her therapist encourages her to seek out things that scare her in order to build up her confidence and also get what she wants out of life. And they also help her work on her depression, which seems to be going well for Mia. She finally decides to go back to school, and later on, JP admits his feelings for her, which terrifies Mia, and she ends up running away, as she still hasn't completely gotten over her feelings for Michael. Meanwhile, Mia learns about an ancestor, Princess Amelie. Princess Amelie was a princess during the bubonic plague era of Genovia's history. She reigned for only 12 days, and Mia learns that she tried to make people's lives better, and she ends up reading Amelie's journal and finding that they have a bit in common, although Mia's troubles pale in comparison to the fact that Amelie developed bubonic plague and ended up dying from it. But she later discovers that Princess Amelie signed an executive order and hid it in the painting, which guaranteed the Genovians a right to a constitutional monarchy rather than a traditional monarchy. And Mia wants to move forward to a constitutional monarchy, as it would lessen her own power in the future and give more power to the people of Genovia. Her father and her grandmother are resistant to this idea, though, because it might result in their lives completely changing. They're a bit selfish about that, and so they go about trying to hide that truth. Mia actually seeks out Lily and tries to mend their friendship and seek advice from Lily about this issue. But Lily reveals that she's deeply angry with Mia because she seems hopeless. She hurt Michael's feelings, and she also hurt Lily's feelings by going out with JP, despite the fact that they were dating. It's also revealed that Lily has a website, IHateMiaThermopolis.com, which has been featured throughout this book, and it's only led to harsher feelings on Mia's part, because she feels like she's sinking and she has no support around her. And indeed, Lily and her have this spat, and it's never resolved throughout the book. Later, at the Women's Society event, Mia gives a speech where she talks about how she wants to be seen as more than just a 16-year-old who doesn't know anything. She wants to contribute great things to the world, and she also reveals about the truth about Princess Amelie and the constitutional monarchy, which causes giant waves and headlines. Again, it seems like Princess Mia is using her princesship for the benefit of her people. But her dad and her grandmother are very upset because she, again, like, things are going to change, and her dad feels like he won't be able to rule over Genovia anymore, being very selfish about that. After the Women's Society event, she runs into JP, and Mia hints that they could possibly spark a romantic relationship in the future. JP says he's willing to wait until she's ready for that. And then when she gets home, she finds a message from Michael, who's been trying to reach her throughout the entire book, but she's always been hitting delete because she's not ready to deal with her feelings towards Michael. And then, so at the end of the book, she replies to Michael and is ready to start that friendship again, indicating that she's somewhat healed through this story. In terms of analysis, there is a bit to talk about, and fortunately, there is some good in this story. Meg Cabot touches upon heartbreak, sadness, and even depression in this story. Some big themes, particularly with Mia going through her first rough breakup in this story. Like, she had a boyfriend before Michael, Kenny, but she didn't really like Kenny, and she was only with him to be nice, and when it ended, she immediately went out with Michael because she felt that like he was the one for her. Knowing how big that relationship meant to her, like for it to not be a thing anymore, and for him to want to seek a friendship, that's surely bound to affect her. And I feel like Meg Cabot does get at the hurt and the sadness of the breakup. How Mia is changed and things feel pretty weird for her at this point in time. There's a good quote that I would like to read to you. "Oh my God, it's so surreal being here. I think Dr. K was wrong, and I do need drugs, because I don't see how else I'm going to cope. I know he said it's good to do one thing every day that scares you. Thanks for that, by the way. Eleanor Roosevelt, thanks a lot. But this is like 9 million things all at once. And yeah, okay, I don't know why schools should be so scary. I was never scared of school before, at least not this much. But there's so much more to it than just school. There's having to talk to people. There's having to act normal when I know I'm not normal. And okay, the truth is I've never been normal, but I am not normal than ever. I am more not normal than ever. I have lost my support system, the one thing I have been able to count on for the past 2 years to keep me sane in this sea of complete insanity. Michael. And now just like that, he's gone, completely ripped from my life. And I'm just supposed to go on like nothing's happened? Yeah, right." And so right there you see the change that Mia's gone through, how everything feels surreal. I like that note, like especially when you're in a state of depression, everything feels different, and like she's noticing the people more than ever now, and she's noticing how difficult school is, and how she doesn't feel like she can do this on her own. She's completely overwhelmed. There's an interesting bit later in the story where she talks about how she fell into her grandfather's cistern when she was younger in a barn or something like that. And no matter how much she struggled to try to get out, she just couldn't do it. She kept sinking further and further into the cistern until her grandfather showed up to help her. And then later in the story, she equates her feelings and what's going on to being in that cistern. No matter how much she tries to ask for help, nobody's coming. She's sinking further and further into this depression, and that's got to feel so terrible. But that's, again, Meg Cabot is really capturing what depression looks like and what heartbreak looks like. That, like, in your time of need, it sometimes feels like no one's around to help you, and that can just make you feel worse, and like the loneliness creeps in, and it doesn't help with the depression. It also doesn't help that Lily is sort of distancing herself from Mia at this point, even going so far as to create a website where she says, "I hate Mia Thermopolis," which again doesn't feel like it's in character for me or for Lily, because she and Mia have had her differences before, but it's never been that extreme. But that's another issue entirely. I also like how Meg Cabot has everything that's been building up to this point get to Mia. Like in the story, she talks about how she doesn't know who she is, and that she feels like everyone else knows her better. She talks about how there's been multiple movies and stories written about her life, and she doesn't have a grasp better than anyone else does. And so that's building up. These years of public attention and expectation to be great is finally crashing down on her, and it's all coming together to make her life pretty miserable at this point. Meg Cabot also has Mia confronting her insecurities at this point. Mia in this story fears as though she is as hopeless as everyone says she is. Like her parents don't believe that she's capable of not panicking at times. Her grandmother certainly feels that she has to be babied and pushed into the proper direction. And Lily has even said multiple times throughout this series that Mia is a baby licker. Like she worries about the smallest things. She's not capable of taking action. She's not self-actualized and stuff like that, which is kind of true for Mia. She's forced to confront these insecurities throughout the story. First in therapy, where the therapist straight up says, you have a lot of issues with this, Mia, but you have to take action. You have to do things that scare you, otherwise you're going to be in this state forever. And then it also helps that she discovers Princess Amelie, who, despite having bubonic plague, took action to make Genovia a better place for its citizens, and to ensure that maybe the plague wouldn't be a big factor in the future. So she has that role model to look up that maybe she didn't have in previous installments. And it ends up leading her to, give a speech and even go so far as to reveal something that would change the nature of Genovia itself in terms of turning into a constitutional monarchy. So I got to give Meg Cabot credit for doing some compelling writing and showing Mia changing for the better in this story. But there are a number of problems with this story. There's a lot of bad characterization again, especially with John Paul Abernathy IV, JP. He's made to be Mia's love interest, but like I said in Princess on the Brink, Meg Cabot doesn't do enough to reveal who JP is. All she says is he's a sweetheart and he has similar interests to Mia, and he's he's willing to do things that make Mia happy. But there's not enough depth to his character. I don't know what he wants or what his background really is, except that maybe he hates corn, of all things. So Meg Cabot could have added a lot more depth, and I feel that the story suffers because it just seems like she's poking Mia into the direction of a relationship with JP. She also does bad characterization with the character of Lana. Lana's been Mia's rival throughout the story, throughout the series even. They've been fighting and whatnot, but Lana takes it upon herself to help Mia in her time of need, and even as she's going through physical changes, to take her shopping and help her get new clothes and whatnot. So Lana becomes a nicer person, but again, Meg Cabot doesn't do anything to reveal more about Lana's character, about why she's helping Mia or what exactly they now have in common. It really just seems like Lana's becoming a nicer person because Mia doesn't have Lily in the story. Like in the first book, when Mia and Lily were fighting, Meg Cabot introduced Tina Hakim Baba and gave her a lot of depth and character, and I thought I got a good picture of who Tina was in that story. But she doesn't do the same here, and I feel like the story suffers because of it, because Mia's acting like Lana is her friend, but there's not enough to know, if that's even true or not. And then there's a whole problem with Lily, which they're in a fight, and again, much like how Meg Cabot kind of regressed on Michael's character in order for the breakup to happen, I feel she's doing the same thing for Lily, because Lily's been tough with Mia throughout this entire series, but she would never go so far as to create a website to torment Mia Thermopolis. Again, it's a pointless story, and Meg Cabot seems to hint that it's based on jealousy, which again, for Meg Cabot to say, "Oh, you're special and people don't like you because they're jealous," it feels very sociopathic, and it's not good writing. And if anyone else were to write like this, we would yell at them and say, "Don't, knock it off. That's a bad message to be sending to America's youth." So yeah, and then as much as I like this story, like the good things, there's still the question of why it took 9 books to reach this point. Why it took 9 books to have this amount of depth and to have a serious conversation about fame and depression and heartbreak and stuff like that. For it to take 9 books for that to happen, and it indicates a problem on Meg Cabot's part. And even with all the good things, there's still a number of glaring issues that prevent this book from really taking off. So I'm glad we're near the end of the series. There's still one more book and then a follow-up in 2015 that I'm going to have to check out too. So those are my thoughts on Princess Mia, the 9th volume of the Princess Diaries series by Meg Cabot. I don't recommend it, and I don't recommend the series. Meg Cabot is not a good writer, and even when she does good, she still leaves you wondering why it took this long for the book to get good. So if you read this book before, I don't know why you would have, or you simply want to comment on something I said, do so below. Let's talk about how bad this is. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that people can find out about how bad this is. In the meantime, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and regal travels. Farewell.